Hey guys, welcome back here to Intuitive Angling, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel for the episode today. And surprisingly guys, we're going to be talking about drop shot fishing today. I've got some really good tips I want to pass along with y'all that I've learned from some of the drop shot masters over the years, including Aaron Martens. And guys, I've had 2 or 3 of my buddies over the years that were just masters at the drop shot technique, and they were kind enough to share a lot of their tips and advice with me over the year to try to help me out with the technique. So what I'm going to pass along to you guys today, I did not develop this, but I learned from my buddies, and we traded off. It's like, I am a shallow water power fisherman. You know, I taught these guys a lot about flipping and jerk baits, and they taught me a lot about finesse stuff. So I'm going to pass along some of the information. I definitely think it's going to help you guys. Well, not think, I know it's going to help you guys get a lot more bites with your drop shot fishing. And also guys, as far as the components on the drop shot, the worms I use and the hooks and the weights, I'll link every one of them individually in my Tackle Warehouse link in this video description. If you guys would like to use my link to get set up with your drop shot stuff, it's a good way to help the channel. And also guys, 2 other quick things. Quick reminder guys, Cast King has got their sale going on their new Kestrel reels. These are their ultralight bait cast reels. They're designed to fish super light lures down to a 64th of an ounce because of the advanced line guide system and the braking systems on it. So if you don't like to fish spinning tackle and you want to throw like little bitty jerk baits and little crank baits and stuff on a bait caster, I'll have the Kestrel link in my video description here. You can use my Cast King link. Use the promo code, guys, Randy10. You get an additional discount on the reel. So we'll get that set up. And one final thing, guys, anybody interested in booking a private on the water lesson with me, shoot me a private message on my Facebook page, Intuitive Angling with Randy Blaukat. I do all my private lessons on Stockton Lake and Table Rock Lake here in Missouri. So I hope to hear from you guys on that. Okay guys, here's the infamous drop shot. Been around forever, incredible bass catcher. Basically, if you're, most people are familiar with it, basically it's just a hook on a worm there. You know, you can rig it a couple different ways with your weight below the worm. So the weight is on the bottom and the worm is off the bottom. So the worm is actually suspended above the bottom and the weight's on the bottom to hold it. And this was a technique that, another one of the techniques that the Japanese anglers brought to the States decades ago. And one of the first anglers that really utilized this successfully in America was Aaron Martens. And Aaron was the one that really taught me a lot about drop shot fishing. And he'd always tell me, it's like, we roomed together and we camped together and we shared fishing information at the tournaments. And he'd always tell me, it's like, he goes, Randy, he goes, you have got to start fishing a drop shot more. He goes, dude, you have got to start doing it. He goes, it is a deadly technique. And Aaron fished it a lot of different ways. He had his technique called the power shot, where he'd fish it on a heavy bait cast outfit, like with a big worm and a bigger weight. You know, he showed me tons of tricks with it, different type of sizes of sinkers, different way to rig the baits, different leader lengths, different drop weights, and just, he fished it everywhere, guys. He fished it in 1 foot of water or in 50 foot of water and everything in between. He always had a drop shot on. And I also had another one of my buddies, Danny Correa, who won a Bassmaster Invitational at Lake Martin on a drop shot, and he showed me some tricks. So let's get into that a little bit, what we're gonna do on this. Now, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the worm, for your drop shot fishing, and I'll talk about some of the stuff that I learned here. My favorite worm for drop shot fishing is the Zoom Finesse worm. This is the one I use 99% of the time. A lot of guys like a Rover worm, but guys, I've done a lot better on the Zoom Finesse worm here. Now, a couple different ways I want to show you guys how to rig it from what both Aaron told me and Danny told me. Now, I prefer to use, and Aaron did too, the drop shot on an open drop shot hook. This is like a #1 Gamakatsu drop shot hook. And this is probably my favorite way to fish it, guys, where you just hook it right through the head of the worm like that. You can see it. You don't ever miss them like this. It's like, this is my favorite way to fish them, especially if if you don't have much cover in the water or if the fish are suspended. If the bass are suspended and like you're fishing for schools of bass underwater, hooking it like this is the best way to hook it. So this is my favorite way to hook it. But one of the ways Aaron showed me how to hook it, because he used a straight shank hook sometime, but he didn't like to use a straight shank hook, a regular one. He liked to use the drop shot hook, and he would rig it like this. He'd come in about 1/4 of an inch below the worm, and he'd rig it just like that, where the worm is completely weedless here. So you still have it in the head of the worm, but by putting it in like that and not threading it all the way through, it allowed him to fish weedless. So he could throw this in and around brush piles, grass beds, a little bit heavier cover. So that's one of the two ways that Aaron always fished it like this. Now, personally, guys, I've caught a lot of fish with a drop shot by wacky rigging it. So I'll just take the drop shot hook like that, and I'll just rig it wacky like that. I've caught a ton of fish doing that. It's sort of something I come up myself. And then let me show you the way Danny figured this out. And this is what I've been doing a lot lately. And actually, my last 3 trips down at Table Rock Lake, I've been catching a lot of drop shot fish. I'll take the 4-inch Zoom Finesse worm, and I'm gonna pinch it off right above the egg sac there. So the worm is about 3 inches long or something like that, 3.5 inches long. And then I'll do the same thing. We come in fact, we were just down yesterday down at Table Rock Lake. We caught about 20 of them on this setup yesterday. And I'll just rig it, straight like that with a little 4-inch, like 3.5-inch worm. I get lots of bites like this. And this was actually the setup that Danny won. Danny was the one that really got me on this. Danny won that Lake Martin tournament on a bit down 4-inch finesse worm like that. And another thing that you want to do that will really help you out, and this doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the water is, has a little color to it or if it's clear. Take a marking pen here, and you want to put just a little bit of a chartreuse, not very much. You just want to put on the butt of it, just like a little puff of it on there, just to add a little bit of color, something about like that. And I don't know what it is. I think that just that little bitty puff of chartreuse there sort of makes it maybe look like a bluegill or something in the water. But you want to have it just enough on there just to show a little bit, but not too overwhelming with it, sort of like that. Okay, now the setup that I use with it most of the time, that is the drop shot weights. There's 2 different kinds that you can get here. I prefer the tungsten drop shot if I can get them, because tungsten is smaller and heavier. But if you're fishing in an area where it's snaggy, say for example, you're fishing around a lot of brush where you get hung up, you probably don't want to buy the tungsten because you'll go through a lot of them. You'll lose a lot of drop shot weights in the brush, and it can cost a lot of money. So if you're fishing around some heavy, thick cover, just buy the lead ones. They're a lot cheaper. You can go through them, but I prefer a tungsten if I'm fishing a little bit open water. And then my line test on my spinning outfit for this setup is usually 6 to 8 pound test. Seagarn Viz X4 carbon line. I couple it up. I've got it on the Megabass Whip Snake spinning reel or spinning rod, and I've got the Cast King Red Demon spinning reel on this, or spinning reel on it. So I'll put all these links in the description of the video. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about how to work a drop shot. There's 2 different ways based upon how you're fishing. Now, I love to fish a drop shot for suspended fish. And since I use 2-dimensional sonar, I'm not really looking for the fish as much as I am for the structure. So one of the ways that I like to do it is I like to get out there like on points and stuff. If you have submerged timber, I like to fish over the top of timber. But other than that, I'm looking for shad schools on my 2D sonar. And if I see some shad schools, and occasionally you can see some fish on the 2D sonar, what I'll do is I'll take the drop shot out there and I'll pitch it like 20 foot in front of the boat, and my boat's moving forward. And by the time my drop shot gets down 20 or 30 foot to where the fish are at, the drop shot is vertical under the boat. So I'm just sitting there and I'm just shaking it just like that with my hand. I'm just barely moving it like that, almost like I'm crappie fishing. And all of a sudden your rod will just bow over like that. The bite is very subtle. And then if I'm casting a drop shot, like on the bottom, I just make the cast out there, and I let it go to the bottom and I shake it in one spot like that. You can see my rod tip right there. I just shake it without moving the reel handle. Got the camera's down, the angle's down, but I just shake it like that without moving the reel handle, and then I'll just pull it like that. I'll take up the slack a little bit, shake it without moving the reel handle, and pull it. And that's the 2 different ways that I do work a drop shot. And another thing about a drop shot is you don't have to set the hook on it. Since you're using that, little tiny drop shot hook it's needle sharp, all you have to do is just start reeling fast when you get a bite on it. But guys, it's a really good bait to catch fish all year long. A drop shot is sort of like, there's only about a half a dozen baits that will produce 12 months out of the year. Things like a finesse jig, a drop shot is one of them. And it's just based upon the time of year where you fish it. In the springtime of the year, I'll fish it in less than 5 foot of water. I'll just go down the bank and just cast down the bank with it with like a light sinker. If it's like, winter time or fall time when there's not a thermocline, I'll fish it deeper on the points and bluffs down to 35 to 50 foot of water. And in the summertime, when I'm fishing a drop shot, I'm always fishing for suspended fish. I'll fish it around bridge piers. I'll fish it around, floating docks. I'll fish it, out off the end of points, over the top of, submerged timber, just anywhere I think the fish are suspended. It's a really good way to catch them in the summertime. And my colors, guys, there's 2 different ones I like. My favorite color is this watermelon candy. I'll put that Zoom link in the description to the Finesse worm. I catch a load of fish on the watermelon candy. Can't go wrong with the green pumpkin. Just stay with your natural tones. Any type of a green pumpkin or watermelon hue is going to be really good with it. So anyway, guys, take Aaron's advice. Aaron tried to beat it into me for decades, and I just wouldn't really listen to him. And that's one of the reasons I wasn't near as consistent as he was. He fished a drop shot all the time and caught a bunch of fish, and I'd put that jig in my hand and try to go for 5 bites all day. But don't hesitate throwing it, guys. It's a great bait to catch quality fish. It's a great bait to get a lot of bites on, and it's definitely has stood the test of time. So hope it helps out.